what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this is going to be my 9.15 Warlock grand updates video, and unfortunately it's not as grand as I would like it to be. However, there are still a handful of updates, changes, things coming to Warlocks both in PvP, PvE, and a couple interesting changes that sort of are Warlock based heading into patch 9.15 that I want to cover. Now, I know there's been a lot of questions about, hey, Covenant swaps are free and conduits and soulbinds and all this stuff. Are we still playing Night Fae? How do the changes to Venthyr, Kyrian, and Necrolord shake things up? Well, we're going to look at those today, talk about the changes, talk about basically everything there is, the target cap being removed for demonology with Felstorm, and sort of just go from there. Now, before we get into the video, I do want to say that I am releasing the 9.15 spec guides starting tomorrow, most likely. I wanted to wait as long as I could for Blizz to maybe push hot fixes to PvE stuff, but I just don't think it's happening at this point. It's 3 in the morning on Saturday, so we're just gonna go with it. Starting tomorrow night, we should have one guide going up, followed by another, and a third one in the next 3 days. My goal is to have them all up by Monday evening, but you know, we'll see where that goes. So with that being said, I want to give a huge shout out to my patrons before we get to the video here. Thank you a million times for all the support, guys. I really truly do appreciate it. If you're interested in supporting, there should be a link somewhere up here, actually probably in the video description. So with that being said, let's get into it. Now, number one off the bat, like I said, there's not a tremendous amount of changes for Warlock, or really there are some, but not really many classes got substantial changes as far as 9.15 is concerned, which is a bit disappointing because Blizz did make mention that they're going to be addressing, changing, underperforming, and not very impactful talents, but maybe that's just been pushed to 9.2. We did get the portal change. There is that. We will get to that, but yeah. So number one, with that being said, one of the big topics in 9.15 is the removal of the target cap. Now, obviously, certain classes like Windwalkers and Warriors, I guess specs like Windwalkers and Warriors or other classes, are probably benefiting a bit more from that than us. However, for Demonology, the Felguard's Felstorm, being baseline Felstorm, and Demonic Strength have now been, I guess, uncapped. They will do reduced damage beyond 8 targets, but I mean, it technically is a gain in a sense. It might be a bit of a loss depending on how actually, you know, dealing less damage with 5 to 6 mobs. But either way, those large pulls, Felstorm being uncapped, is technically a buff for Demonology when it comes to plus. Now, we have sort of shifted to the, I guess, FTS Dreadless build a bit, but regardless, nice to see. I guess I'll take it in the end because for the most part, hey, you know, Locke really hasn't had to deal with a whole lot of capped abilities. Seed of Corruption being uncapped, Kata being uncapped, Rain of Fire being uncapped. It makes sense, right? So moving on to the, I guess, Impending Catastrophe Venthyr changes here. Impending Catastrophe Chaotic Anima Cloud width has been increased by 60%. It now deals a tick of its periodic damage on impact. It will more accurately apply its damage over time effect to hostile targets. So when the Venthyr Legendary first came out, which for those who don't know, it is this thing, Catastrophe's damage over time has increased by 125%, plus 15% for each enemy target hit on its way to the final target. We tested it here in Desara Lore, and for the most part, it wasn't too hard to get value on the actual like travel through effect of of Impending Catastrophe, but it seemed like the actual radius of the effect was a bit finicky. Now, I'm going to be honest, like this legendary actually isn't that bad. Like opening up here briefly, just doing random stuff. The damage it puts out is actually impressive. I was surprised when we played it last time, albeit we're playing Siphon Life here for whatever reason. Put up our PS and just launch this thing. Wait for it to hit. Say, sure, I'm travel time, right? Dark Larry up and Rapture a bit. Well, you'll notice here towards the end, it actually does a pretty substantial amount of damage. We're bursting over 22k here, and I mean, you know, like we have most of our dots up, barring Siphon Life. But look at the damage breakdown here. It does a pretty good portion of your damage, being 20% plus a little bit of impact damage here. So a radius extension is nice. I think it's sort of there to address the actual travel through part of it, not tagging every single mob when it's like sort of a clustered pack. But regardless, still having a target like the final back mob to get the 15% bonus of the travel through effect of it is a bit annoying. Putting that aside though, looking at the actual sims from this change in pure single target. Now I will say I wasn't playing a soulbind for this. I wasn't going back to the Covenant Hall a million times to fix this, but it's the same across the board. So this is like a pre-buff sim from an advanced PTR sim. This is not PTR. 7,669 damage without the effect coming in. Here's a PTR sim. So you're looking at about roughly, give or take, a 40 to 45 DPS increase due to the partial periodic tick of Impending Catastrophe dealing damage. If you go down here, you can see it too. This is the non-PTR sim. The actual dot deals about 149.5, and this one deals 162. So it is a bit of an increase. It's something in the end. It's not going to help Venthyr go from being like decent to insane. I do feel that realistically, Even though the ability does do a lot of damage in AoE if you're playing legendary and doing things properly, I just sort of feel that, like, number one, Night Fae is still better with DSS and seed spam, and number two, once again, while the ability is good with legendary, I don't really want to be playing a legendary that makes my Covenant ability good. I want it to be good in the first place, and the legendary is where to complement it. Now, this effect's not bad on single target, and it's better in AoE, but overall, I still think Venthyr could use a bit of help when it comes to the Covenant ability tuning department. About a 50-ish DPS game when it comes to single target. Alrighty, so moving on to the Necrolord changes very briefly. I'm sorry, Necrolord Warlocks. Decimating Bolt's cast time was reduced to 2 seconds from 2.5. Not a huge difference here. I guess it's fine in PvP in certain places where cast time is of worry, but for the most part, I'm sorry. That's just life. Listen, I was rooting for Necrolord too, but in the end, I guess it didn't really need the attention, apparently. So, moving on, Kyrian stuff. So, number one, Scouring Tithe. The instant and periodic damage has been increased by 20%, and the cast time has been reduced to 1.5 seconds from 2 seconds. So, I mean, you can see here we're on PTR. It's actually a 1.2 second cast time. It's affected by haste. There's a Scouring Tithe. Both the impact damage and the dot effect here have been increased by 20%. Now, Scouring Tithe is not an ability that's like doing 20% of our damage, like Impending Catastrophe is for Venthyr in AoE. But the one thing about Scouring Tithe, for at least Affliction Lock, is that it's another dot. You can just basically maintain the entire time on patchwork fights and get a bit more rapture value. If you're not rapturing in a rapture window, for example, if you're playing Malefic Wrath, for example, it's a further increase to Withering Bolt and just rapture damage outside of, you know, those rapture windows that you have. Similar to Destro, you can Havoc the ability. One target dies, one doesn't. You get shards back and the cooldown resets. In Demonology, it's just sort of there, but, you know, Demo is just weird with Kyrian. So a solid increase there, 20% increase. We'll look at the sims for both that DPS increase and the ability. I guess the legendary right here is also buffed. So Languishing Soul Detritus, I believe. Yeah, Detritus, I think, actually. Regardless, the critical strike chance bonus has been increased to 45%, was 40, and now also grants the Warlock 33% movement speed and a 15% crit buff if Scouring Tithe expires. So that means basically if the dot expires, you get to recast it again, which is really cool because here is the actual legendary in its current form on retail. You can see it gets 40% crit chance for 8 seconds and your big bonus in movement speed. Here it is on PTR. So they've just added a clause to this that says, hey, if it expires, you gain 1/3 of the value of the crit and the speed from, you know, if it actually dies with the effect on it, which is actually really cool because one of the big things I feel with Kyrian, the issue is that Scouring Tithe is like based around things dying, like that legendary until now, the actual Covenant conduit thing. Whenever a target dies, you gain a bonus to Malefic Wrath, Chaos Bolt, and I believe Demon Bolt, even Demonology. But if it doesn't die, this is literally a dead conduit. It doesn't do anything. It's like this conduit should have probably been addressed as well. But regardless, the conduit, legendary, and even Tithe itself giving you arguably a better bonus with 5 shards when something dies with it active. It's cool seeing the legendary changed. So you have essentially that, you know, 1/3 of a value effect. I actually have it on right now. You'll see when I go into combat here, just opening up briefly, not doing anything crazy, just opening up, not even doing the rotation, just hitting buttons, I guess, for the most part. Once the actual ability expires, which has been extended by Soul Rot here, once it expires, I will indeed get that critical strike chance increase for 15% of it. Now, you can also sort of see here how much raw damage Scouring Tithe does on its own as far as AF is concerned. It's what, about 8%. It'll probably drop off a little bit once the actual impact damage and things expire and other dots end up rolling a little bit longer and, you know, rapture windows, all that stuff. But regardless, it's expiring right about now. There's the buff, bang, crit 15% and movement speed increase. There you go. So essentially outside of rapture windows, I'm sorry, dark layer windows, you should have this honestly, what, every 18 seconds, that buff, which is actually pretty solid if it stacks with other Kyrian abilities, other, you know, intellect procs, the final, I guess, I believe, Pelagos ability. It's not too bad. So my question was, number one, what is the baseline increase off of, this is gonna annoy me, what is the baseline increase off of the Kyrian Scouring Tithe buff? So I ran sims for that right here. So this is Kyrian Malefic Wrath sims, wearing the Malefic Wrath legendary, not playing Languishing Soul, whatever, Malefic Wrath. This is what I simmed at, 9,624 DPS. Once again, the links to the sims will be down below in the video description. This is post buff. 9,828, so roughly a 170-ish, 70, 80-ish DPS increase, mainly due to Scouring Tithe. You can see here at about 106,000 damage. Going here, it's about 130,000 damage. So you can see the buff is there, legitimate, relevant, all of that. So I then said, okay, I want to see, let me dig through here and make sure these are the right sims. They've got a few of them up. I want to see what the actual difference is with Languishing, the legendary, the Languishing Soul Detritus legendary. So I ended up making it on a cloak. It's one of these 4 sims here. Let's see. I ended up making it, yeah, I put it on a cloak. We ended up wearing it. Unfortunately, when I ran the sim, this is a pre-PTR sim. This is like a 9.1 sim, which also has it doesn't have the in combat if it expires clause attached to the legendary. I ran the sim and it gave me 8,714 DPS. And then I ran a sim with a PTR flag and it gave me 8,870 DPS, which is less than the Malefic Wrath sim, but the actual like difference between the two is roughly the same. What, like 170, 160-ish DPS. So I scrolled down, and unfortunately, in the PTR sim, Languishing Soul Detritus, the actual buff is not here. So I don't think the legendary has been updated for it. So it's sort of hard to say what it actually does if you compare the two here. Like pre-PTR and I guess, or pre 9.15 and post, there's literally the same thing. There's just no debuff here, or buff. There shouldn't be a buff here for the pre 9.15 sim, but there should be one here and there's not. So unfortunately, the legendary is not updated. I'm expecting it to be semi-relevant. It's not going to beat Malefic Wrath. It's not going to give you a 500 DPS increase or anything along those lines. But as far as like consistency goes for Kyrian and Scouring Tithe effects and things like that, it's actually a pretty cool effect and a step in the right direction, I feel. So Kyrian, Scouring Tithe getting what it seems like 170-ish DPS buff for Affliction. I would assume a bit less for Destro and probably Demo as well. But at the same time, Destro was a bit more precise with Havoc windows and things if need be. And if you're playing single target Destro, I mean, I don't know what to tell you. And Demo single target is just good. So let's move on outside of Covenant stuff to a few other impactful changes for Warlocks in 9.15. So there are two main things left, one being the Nether portal change, the other actually being the gateway item, which is pretty cool. We'll talk about that in a little bit. But there are a few brief PvP changes that I want to talk about. If I don't, I'm going to get yelled at. And some of them are actually pretty relevant. So Decimating Bolts damage, Demon Bolt, Shadow Bolt, and Incinerate can no longer be dispelled, which, you know, that in conjunction with Dark Soul also not being dispellable for AF and Destro, which is actually a big change. And one of the things that Channel wanted us to like put in the feedback document early on is a step in the right direction. So pairing all that together with the 2-second cast on Bolt, not 2.5, there is some serious potential for some, I don't know, AF, Destro, even Demo, I guess, gameplay in PvP. At least it's a step in the right direction, like I said, nonetheless. Death Bolt now deals 50% of the remaining damage of dots, was 40, and can no longer crit. I'm not sure of the overall playability of Death Bolt in PvP. And the spell now reaches the target faster. If you guys remember Death Bolt, it used to be like this massive arc that would take years to reach the target. I guess it moves faster now. Rapid Contagion, duration now increased to 20 seconds with 15, so buff to AF in that sense as well. Once again, Dark Soul no longer dispellable for AF and Destruction in PvP. And Bonds of Fel has been redesigned. It no longer snares the target, no longer splits damage of pets and guardians. Yeah, there you go. So as far as the remaining changes go, the bigger ones here, you covered basically all the Covenant ones and the uncapping of Felstorm. The big thing, Nether portal talent, I guess one of the two, being reduced to 2.5 seconds was 3. Now, I've sort of made a video on this in the past, I guess when it first happened, and I sort of used the word, they nerfed Nether portal. Now, I guess I could have been more descriptive when it came to that. It's not a nerf, because in the end, you can just still hold it for 3 minutes if you're not playing Wilfrids, and just go Tyrant at 0, at 130, and at 3. 0 and 3 being portal-based tyrants, but I still don't really understand the actual direction of making this change. Now, okay, opener-wise here, I haven't played Portal in a while, and I'm playing a bit of an interesting build here, but nonetheless, we can orb. I'll try and do this opener here, right? I think it's important to look at the actual overall burst damage that we sort of reach with this build. If you open the portal, hit the Grimoire, the Vile Fiend, hit the dogs, and we're going Shadow Bolt hand into a Tyrant, and just double hand spam so we can get our remaining things out of this portal. Tyrant, 5 shards. Hand, I might get a second hand here before it closes for pets. There we go. We can just Strength here. And for the most part, we're just going now, right? But the fact of the matter is like, even though Portal was incredibly cool, I've got this massive army of demons beating on this dummy. Dude, I'm not even breaking 10k burst. Like, Demonic Consumption's bursting 13, 14k. I have a Flask, Food, Rune. I even got a Mantis Rune on if you really want. That was basically full CDs. Now, we are playing Wilfrids here instead of, like, you know, Horn Nightmare or maybe Dog Legendary, which might be a bit more beneficial as far as, like, Nether Portal goes if you're not taking the 2.5 minute CD into account. I know this cast bar in the middle of my screen's annoying. My apologies. I'm sorry. But even lining up Wilfrids with Nether Portal being, you know, 2.5 minutes, not 3, with Tyrant being about 1:05 with Wilfrids coming into play, you just don't, in my opinion, get the same value, right? The big power behind Wilfrids is pretty much because, hey, you're playing Decon. And decon is like an insane part of your damage. Like decon just cranks. Tyrant hits so incredibly hard. Decon puts out incredible damage, and you just go from there. I didn't even hit my Vile Fiend. You just zoom. Like decon is just incredible. The damage it puts out, this is a bit of a scuffed Tyrant, but it's fine. That doesn't do, because these Tyrants don't do anything anyway, so they're not decon based. Decon gives you that incredible damage profile roughly every minute with Wilfrids, and the whole spec is essentially built around it, right? You're playing Vile Fiend, you're playing Grimoire, you're trying to get as many pets into this one Tyrant cast, which is why it feels so bad if you're in combat and you get a mechanic on you, or have to move, and your Tyrant gets stuffed. That's all your damage, right? I'm not saying Demo Lock is like Venthyr or Boomkin Brain, but at the same time, like, there's a lot of setup with it, and if something gets scuffed, it's really, really frustrating and completely ruins your damage for, I mean, realistically, that pull, being honest, right? So we have Portal in about 35 seconds here, Tyrant in about 35. We're going to get some more CDRs on this Tyrant, so it's going to come up before the Portal by a little bit. But I mean, we're sitting at 6.5k damage, and once again, like, Portal's not a crazy, like, overall, like, part of our damage in the first place. So I'm not sure if this change was made to try and compensate for, like, maybe make like a shorter damage profile with Portal be a bit more relevant with Wilfrids, but I just feel overall this change is awkward and not really what Portal needs. I'll go into this Portal here in about 7 seconds, I guess, sort of show how it is. I'll launch a bolt here, we'll channel our orb. Let's go into our Soul Rod here, which isn't really even relevant because we're not playing stamina effects, but I didn't mean to launch my dogs there, but hey, that's whatever. Grimoire, Vile Fiend, and we can just go hand bolt spam. It's not a big deal. And technically, demonic consumption is anti-synergistic because it doesn't even really consume a shard anymore, so it might not even been bad launching those dogs. We Tyrant, we hand. The Portal should close about now. Maybe making it more pet in, maybe not. We strength. Like, we're sitting at 6.3k damage. I'm like, okay, I might have launched a dog set there early because it's a weird keybind, but it doesn't make a difference. Our damage is so abysmal playing Portal. I'm like, looking at our damage breakdown here, yeah, it's really cool seeing 35 sources of damage, but when none of them hit hard, like, our imps are the main source of damage. Our Tyrant's down here, and I ripped 3 of them off. Like, you can just see the power of decon. Playing demonic consumption, Tyrant is like this with the imps, and everything else is down here. But without it, Tyrant doesn't do anything. And like, while there's a lot of awesome pets here, you've got like a Void Terror, a Bioscourge Bombers, a Shivara, Lord Draxus at times, Fellhounds, Felguards, Urzuls. When they don't really do anything, it doesn't matter, right? That's the thing. Like, so there's a lot of ways they can change Portal. I don't personally feel the change is going to be very good at all whatsoever. It's going to keep the ability. The ability is still irrelevant in my eyes. It's a much more stationary based ability you have to stand still for to set up. Realistically, your setup is about 20-ish seconds long. Casting the Portal, getting your pets out, getting your shards built, Tyrant spawns, 2 more hands, launching those actual, like, just hand and Cooldown casts, and then the Portal closes and it's fine, but you're just left lacking, like, wondering where your damage is at. Because you can just play decon, which has about half the setup, give or take, which is much more mobile, and you do twice the amount of damage. So I think, honestly, the way that they need to make Portal relevant, it's going to be hard to do. But, like, I'm going to be honest. Like, listen, I like Demo. I enjoy it. Demo with PI and without PI feels incredibly different. It's like playing a different spec completely. But as unfortunate as it is, they need to find a way to balance Portal and demonic consumption. Like, realistically, decon, the synergy, like stamina scaling and pet synergy, probably needs to be changed and nerfed. You play one build in raid. This is it. Like with decon, I'm in combat with the stupid fairy thing, but like, you play decon. You don't play anything else. You can go strength, calling, Vile Fiend, Grimoire, consumption, and never change in raid. That's it. You know, there are some Dreadlash potential at times, but they just play this build. That's it. Decon is so powerful. It makes the entire build play a set of talents that never changes, right? The way they need to try and balance decon is to make Portal the stronger CD. Even if it's 3 minutes, it's fine. But just buff, either like you can reduce the cooldown and make it stronger in single target, or you can leave the cooldown at 2.5, 3 minutes, but buff either the duration of the pets or buff the attack power of the pets, buff the damage somehow, so that Portal is the stronger cooldown when it comes to single target. And you have decon, which you can, maybe Portal's better with, like, you know, Horn Nightmare, because it might double dip, for example, or like Dog Legendary. And you have decon, which is a minute to a minute and a half cooldown, depending if you're playing Wilfrids, which you probably are playing decon. It shouldn't be as strong as Portal in single target, but it gives you so much more flexibility. It's essentially 2.5 cooldowns in the place of like decon or another Portal being 2.5 minutes versus 1. It's flexible. You can cast it on a move. You can set up huge impacts from one pack to the next and plus, go into a pack, Soul Rot, Dogs, Tyrant, and just crank the whole pack down. This should be like your Mythic Plus mobility, kind of like a bit more flexibility talent. And Portal, I'm fine with Portal being stationary. There might be fights where you can't play it because you just have to move too much, right? But like Remnant of Ner'zhul, for example, and you can play decon there. But at this point, like the 2.5 minute change to Nether portal doesn't do anything. It's not a nerf. It's not a buff. It's like, I don't know. It's just not good. So unfortunately, while a portal is really cool and one of my favorite abilities in the game, it's just still very, very irrelevant. The pets need to be buffed damage wise. Either they need to reduce the cooldown to like 1.5 minutes, like to line up with every tyrant, or something else needs to change with this. And honestly, like being real, as much as I hate to say it, decon needs to probably be addressed and realistically probably just removed because it's just too good. We've played decon since it was buffed 4 years ago and never changed from that. And this is not even a talent. This should just be removed from the game. So, sorry if you had high hopes for Nether portal. I did too, but unfortunately, without any more buffs or tuning or anything to PvE, it's just still dead. You play decon, and that's it. Oh yeah, and in addition to holding your tyrant for a little while with Nether portal, I also forgot to mention that your Grimoire is a 2-minute cooldown, which you're probably not going to not want to play when it comes to single target. You're going to want this in single target. It's a 2-minute cooldown. So you're holding your Grimoire, you're holding your Tyrant, you're holding your Vial Feed all for one ability. Let's put it this way. Remember how AF had a 3-minute cooldown in Dark Lair and a 2-minute cooldown in Dark Soul, and how bad that felt at times? You've got a 2.5 minute cooldown, a 45-second cooldown, a minute cooldown, a 2-minute cooldown, and a minute 10-second cooldown. Please help. All right, I did want to end the video on a high note though, and one of the coolest quality of life changes, which is sort of Warlock based, this expansion, is hands down this item. You get it in the Hall of Curiosities right here from this dude, Acquirer Tagash. Dude, Gateway Control Shard. So this was actually spoiled in one of the early PTR patches, which if you've raided in Sanctum Domination, Sylvanas, Soul Render, Painsmith, a handful of other fights, and even other places in general in the expansion, you've probably felt the pain of, okay, focus the gateway, get ready to gateway, all right, focus the gateway, and at the same time you might even focus the opposite end of the gateway, which is pretty annoying. Mouse over macros with gateways have been incredibly annoying, and I wouldn't say a burden, but just really frustrating for a long time now, and there hasn't really been a good solution to it. Now, as far as I've seen, I have not found anybody that gave feedback on an item like this. So instead of having to, before a boss, set a gateway down, all right, focus the gateway, ready to go, and then move near it, all right, you know, actually just smash the actual interrupt or the actual keybind and use the gate, Blizzard has introduced this item. It is now the Gateway Control Shard. So I'll put it on my Control 6 bind here. It's fine. It's really, really cool. It's super simple too. Activate the nearest demonic gateway on a 1-second cooldown. That's literally it. It costs 100 gold, and it is one of the biggest lifesavers as far as a raiding, wherever you're using a gateway is. Everyone's been there, where you're standing right here, there's not a mob around you, but you need to take a gateway. You're looking at both ends, you're spamming it, no debuff, and the gateway just won't go off. And you have no idea why. Blizzard doesn't even know why. Nobody knows why. But thankfully, that will no longer be a thing. So I'm on cooldown for another 50 seconds here, but this is utterly insane. So instead of having a focus macro to focus the gateway and interact with the different keybind, essentially requiring 2, all you have to do is buy this item. It doesn't matter what side of the gateway you're on, whether it's the one you place or at the very end. Whenever my debuff goes away, you see the actual icons faded a bit here. Whenever my debuff drops in about half a minute here, it'll light up. It'll essentially be the same brightness as this Fel Domination icon. And when I move closer, or when I move further, it'll become, I guess, shaded, or I guess saturated, however you want to word it. It's sort of like a range indicator on the gateway, as well as saying, hey, you can take this gate versus you have a debuff or you're out of range or whatever. It's so incredibly convenient, because even with having focus macros interact things and keybinds, there has been a couple times I've been standing like here. I can't take the gate because technically I'm a yard and a half too far away. But you'll see in 2 seconds here, this will become illuminated right now. Look, I can gate. It's bound to C6. I can be over here. I can get rid of this actual focus. I can target my pet. Control 6. Simple. One of the best changes in 9.1.5, hands down, which is sort of Warlock based, is the Gateway Control Shard. No longer will you fixate the wrong part of the gateway. It's just great. It is literally probably the best quality life change in this patch. Forget Covenant, Conduit, Soulbind swapping. We're all past that. This is the best change, hands down. Gateway Control Shard. Not even close. So yeah, thanks for watching, guys. Now, like I said, I don't want this video to, well, I don't want this video to seem like I'm, you know, angry or disappointed. I am disappointed, I'll be honest, in certain things. I was hoping for more class tuning. There's a lot of abilities like Grimoire of Sacrifice, Sack Souls, Inner Demons. I can keep going with other specs and things here, but there are a handful of talents and abilities that, you know, I was hoping would be addressed this patch. Liz did mention that in 9.15, they're addressing talents that are underperforming or rarely taken, but I guess they address Portal, sort of, Not really. Either way, 9.15 should still be a pretty cool patch. You've got Legion Time Walking, Legion Plus, Covenant Swapping, Conduit Energy being, I guess, removed completely now, which I have still had a few issues with now playing different specs from time to time. And I guess leveling Renown, which, hey, I don't know. To me, I personally enjoy. I'm excited to venture into some Venthyr, Mythic Plus, some Necrolord Destro gameplay, Necrolord F with Malefic Wrath too. The APLs are a little scuffed right now. I think it's better than people think it is, and probably has some. The execute on that build can be really, really insane. They probably could have buffed Necrolord a bit. I wouldn't have hated them adding a second charge to decimating bolt for a drain soul, but you know, well, yeah, it is what it is. Now, if Blizzard does end up pushing some PvE tuning over the next few days after this video's out, I'll end up making a new video on it. Once again, I should be releasing the spec guides starting tomorrow night, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday, and then Tuesday I'll be streaming, Monday and Tuesday streaming for the actual patch release. So let me know what you guys think of these changes in the comment section below. If you guys have any plans on playing Kyrian, Necrolord, or Venthyr when they go live, let me know as well. I'm curious. Like I said, Venthyr, Legendary, and Plus, I actually want to mess with it a bit. It's gonna feel bad leaving Decaying Soul Satchel behind for Night Fae, but I don't know, man. Venthyr looks pretty cool, and I haven't played it all expansion. I'm sort of excited too. If you guys would like to acquire any weak ORS profiles or add-ons in here, they're all indeed available to you guys for free on my Twitch. If you want to swing by, hang out, ask any questions, feel free to do so. I also want to give a massive shout out to my patrons. Thank you a million times, guys, for all support. I really, truly appreciate it. If you're interested in potentially supporting on Patreon, there should be a link somewhere up here, as well as in the video description down below. And all the sims are also down there as well, if you guys want them, by the way. So yeah, with that being said, I'll catch you guys all again soon on stream, or I guess tomorrow in the first video of the 9.15 Warlock spec guides. Thanks again, dudes, and I'll catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.